Welcome to the 3030 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Dr. Ruiz.
Hello everyone, my guest today is Dan Pardi. He is one of the most influential figures in the ancestral community. His expertise on the science of sleep has helped thousands over the years. Dan's life work centers on how to help people live healthfully. He is the CEO of Human OS, which leverages a novel behavior model to promote health fluency, skill development, and lifestyle insights to help people master their health practice. He does research with the Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences Department in Stanford and the Departments of Neurology and Endocrinology at Leiden University in the Netherlands, where he investigates how lifestyle factors like sleep influence decision-making, cognitive performance, and metabolism. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review on iTunes. This helps me spread this ancestral message. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hello everyone, I'm here with my dear friend Dan Pardi. Dan, how are you, man?
Hey man, I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
You know, you are the most elusive person in the paleosphere. I've been dogging you around and trying to get you on my show. And finally, it has happened.
I like to keep you on your toes. I had a pretty busy last couple months, so I wanted to schedule this at a time where I was looking forward to it versus like, I've got so much to do that, I was going to stress about it more because I've been looking forward to our chat for sure.
It's so funny, that you have had such an influence on my life. And then, we meet at PFX and we immediately connect. But for people that maybe are new to this health evolutionary sphere, can you talk a little bit about you? What's your hero story? How did you come into this space?
Yeah, so for me, I've been interested in health my whole life. I played sports growing up. And I was always interested in looking at how to optimize my performance. That particularly happened around a time when I got injured and I needed to get myself back onto the field. I started to pay attention more to my body and how to heal it. So that basically initiated sort of an interest in the science around my body and performance. And that led to pursuing an academic career. And I didn't exactly know what I was going to do when I was in college. So I did a double major, double minor in all the things in the departments that were related to sports, exercise science. I went on to do a master's in exercise physiology with an emphasis more in neuroscience and how the body will regulate fat stores. And then I did clinical research with Dr. Dean Ornish for about a year. And we were looking at how if you take multiple different aspects of how we live and you can create one whole program, can that influence the progression of prostate cancer? So we had 180 patients in the study. They came once a week for a 7-hour intervention. It was a pretty amazing study, actually, and it left an impression on me. Then I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about a decade, and I ran a medical affairs department, which is basically doing, after a product comes to market, medical affairs does scientific support on that product. So I ran a research grant program. I was involved in scientific publications, and it was very rewarding because I was interacting with some of the top scientists in sleep. And that's where my love for sleep was ignited. I left there and I basically started two different things. I started my PhD, and I also had at the same time was recalling my work with Dr. Ornish. And I wanted to create a tool that would facilitate change in people and that were interested, that said, hey, I'm looking for solutions. I want to be my healthiest. I want to have exceptional health and the results of that, which is living long and having a good life, not encumbered by illness. And I also recognize that my health helps me perform well in my life now. And so that was sort of the genesis of what became Dan's plan.
Which is how I got introduced to you. Because you did a couple of rounds, going to different podcasts, and so I followed you around, and I actually bought a couple of Bluetooth enabled devices, to try to implement. So there's some of my data in your Dan's plan.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so it's all based off of a behavior model that I developed at the beginning of that effort. The model is called the loop model to sustain health behaviors. The idea is how you ask that question, how can we facilitate health behaviors in others? Because as people that are working in the space like you and I, we can't be healthy for people, but we can help people be better at their health. And there are times we can intervene and, basically do some diagnostics or try to help somebody understand what's going on with them, to lay out a plan that says, hey, we think by diagnosing this, I'm talking more from your field, but we think this is what's going on with you, and this is one of the different ways where you might be able to ameliorate your current situation. Overall, however, the thesis that I've been working from is that the main responsibility of your own health is you. It's not your doctor, it's not the government, it's not even your health tracker or device. Now, all of those things have an important role and can help, but we tend to outsource we tend to think that we're always outsourcing our own responsibility of our health as the responsibility of others. And whether we think that directly or it's just subconscious, that idea does permeate through the modern world. And so what I'm interested in is helping people take more radical ownership of their health, utilizing all the resources that they have available, understanding the best knowledge in a certain subject and how to use the best tech that's coming out there, and saying, okay, I'm going to be making more decisions that affect my health than anybody across my life, and so I need to be good at it. And if that is a truth that you believe in, and actually if you sort of reverse that and challenge it, it really holds up, right? We do have a responsibility in our own health. We see the result of people that don't embrace that. It's chronic disease. And so now it's really hard. Health is so challenging. There's so much to learn. It's not something that you can just do and then you're done with it. It's actually something that I think the right mindset is something where you are engaged with it regularly for your whole life.
So let's put it in that, because these are like higher level concepts that we've discussed personally, and maybe we've lost a couple of people in the process. Let's talk about like actionable things. Like, for example, you have a person that wants to have better sleep patterns because maybe they read an article, maybe their doctor told them you need to sleep more, maybe they've suffered from insomnia. How can you use the loop model to help that person achieve that goal?
Okay, well, first of all, you've described a person who has expressed interest either because they have an issue or because they read something that made them realize that this could be important. So who knows? Maybe that article talked about people that don't get enough sleep have an increased risk of disease, or that sleep is really important for cognitive performance. So whatever that motivational source is, what you understand about a subject will affect your motivation and can guide you to try to take action on it, right? There are things right now that are affecting our health that overall we might just not know that they have an influence, and so we're not taking action on them even if we could, because we don't know. But it's not enough for the world to know about it. What matters is that you know enough. So how much information do you need to know on a subject? So the loop model can be explained in 4 different parts. So in order for somebody to adopt and sustain health behaviors long term, they need to understand why they're doing something. And this can apply to any one of the subjects that are related to health. So why should you do it? How do you do it? Right? That's translating the idea of why it's important into what it looks like over a day or a week. How does this affect how I'm living across a 24-hour period? Then, am I doing it? Right? So why should I do it? How do I do it? Am I doing it? And that's okay. I believe in the idea. I actually know how I have the skills to implement it into my life, but life gets busy. And 4 months after you've learned about the concept, what is ensuring that you continue to do it on a day-by-day basis so it actually helps describe your pattern of living? And then lastly is it working? Right? So why should I do it? How do I do it? Am I doing it? And is it working? We tend to then look at things that can be like blood work, a cognitive performance test, mental performance test. There's so many different ways to get some insight into how your body is performing in health or in life, and then what is the trajectory of that marker, right? So if you're looking at, let's say, something in your blood, then how does that sort of am I in a good zone? And then what is the trajectory of that marker? So am I staying healthy or am I improving or whatever the goal is? So that's the model, and it makes it really easy to understand. And what you're really thinking about is there's a couple of ways you can break down the model. The first part is it's information. So you're looking at what's known that's out there, and then how do I then turn that into a skill? Then the second two parts are tracking, right? So can I get some sort of insight or feedback into my pattern, and then is that pattern giving me the results that I want? So 2 levels of information and 2 levels of tracking. But actually, if you think about even the tracking side, that's actually information about you. So you really want the whole idea of sort of creating personal health mastery, which is the emphasis here, is that you have a good understanding of what's known and you have a good understanding of yourself, and you continue to engage on a daily basis, and you make that a part. You make your lifestyle pattern one that meshes with the concept that you appreciate. So that's the idea. Now, for sleep is a pretty interesting component of health because, one, the science behind it is, I would say, endlessly fascinating. It's a window into how the brain and body work overall, and it's complex. The actual application of saying, okay, I really care to get the best sleep that I can, what does that look like, is a lot easier than actually diet, right? Diet, there's hundreds of choices to be made. We're making multiple choices many times, across the day. Brian Wansing's work at one point showed that we make 200 different decisions per day about food. Every time we look at something, we're deciding, should I eat it or not, how much? And so that is a different type of situation when we're thinking about our own health behaviors. With sleep, you can get information on your sleep, and then that can inform you about things that might be affecting it. But generally, you want to go to bed at the right time, and you want to spend enough time in bed. That's one component. And then you also want to be getting smart light rhythms day, evening, and night, because light is going to also influence the quality of your sleep. So to think about sleep, if you think about really what the challenge is with sleep, is that it is Netflix, right? You're in bed at night and you have something that is engaging you, that you are excited. Your whole day is here and you get some entertainment, some reward, something that you want to watch, whether it's reading a book, spending time with loved ones, some personal time, or, watching the latest episode of some show that you love. And we have to then basically be able to say, I'm going to cut this off at a time where I could watch another episode because I value getting the sleep that I know, because I know it's going to affect how I perform tomorrow. I know that this actually matters in my life. And that is just one sort of example about sort of the actual bargain that we have to make with ourselves, and how knowledge about its importance can actually empower better decisions in your life when you say, okay, sleep really matters. I'm not going to basically stay up as long as I can, but I'm going to cut it off at a certain time, and I'm going to prioritize sleep over a little bit more enjoyment in my life. That is where it all comes down to, actually. And so knowing the connections about how sleep affects how you think and how it affects inflammation in the body and longevity, and pretty much I have a saying that there's no part of the body that goes untouched when we don't get good sleep. And that's true. Now, you don't have to understand all of it, but understanding some of it with enough detail is really critical to then being able to empower it with value. That's one thing that I say. You empower this knowledge with value in your life, and you make it a priority. So that's some thinking around the loop model, how it can relate specifically to sleep. And so that's sort of like the basis of how I think about health and how we can affect it in our own lives.
Now, with all these tracking devices that are coming out, like now the iPhone comes with its own native app. What are the downfalls of those applications? I read a study recently that the idea that this was going to be a game changer didn't pan out, at least in the short term. Why are people not sticking to the program? Why are people not counting the steps every day? Or why are we not getting the benefits that we expected to get?
I would say that giving somebody a health tracker, but not really sort of emphasizing its value or educating them on why it's important, what you end up having is basically something that's causing friction in your life that you don't understand why you're using it, for a lot of people. Now, the way that I like to look at it is that there are people that are getting tremendous value out of it. And what are they doing that makes it work? right? So a lot of these companies have the pressure to grow, and that means getting it into the hands of as many people as possible and selling as many units and SKUs at Walmart or whatever. Yeah, I want to get it into people's hands as well, but there's a reason why we do see drop off. But there's also a reason why we see some people that are users of it and they understand, they basically have been using it for years and it's been affecting their behavior. So let's focus on that. So these devices are, again, you can look at them. Well, I'll kind of back up and I'll give you a bit of a history. Pedometers or step counters are not new. They've been around for a long time. But with the advent of wireless technology and APIs that allow you to basically collect data, wirelessly stream it to the cloud, then you start to then create a better feedback loop where you can give somebody a goal and then you can have that interact with some sort of cloud system that then is doing some analysis and then giving you feedback in a manner that is useful. But the nice thing about the step counter is that I think of steps like time. Steps are not something that you want to collect over the day and then figure out, tomorrow. Like you look at your watch, like how did I do yesterday? Actually, you want to look at it in real time while it can affect your behavior. And so that's where a huge advantage is with Fitbit compared to the Apple Watch, where you have to then dig down into 4 apps. Like, I don't know any stats about how many times we look at our watch for time over the course of the day, but that is way reduced. If you had to go into an app, you had to dig down, you had to scroll over 4 screens. That's what it's like to check your steps on the Apple Watch. On the Fitbit, you go like this. That's my steps, right? So the more that you can reduce that level of friction, the more that the feedback that you're getting can influence your behavior here and now, particularly when we're talking about steps. Now, if you think of steps as, gosh, it's terrible exercise, it offers no value to us, then that's not going to really help. So if you think about the chain of the chain of sort of causation for helping, you have to think that, okay, steps are meaningful to look at and collect, that this is not a bad exercise tracker, but a good step counter. If you're thinking about, let's say, a Fitbit, you have to then say, how do then steps fit into my overall physical activity practice? Right? It's not the only thing that I want to do, but how is it an important component of the overall way that I'm moving? And then how does my physical activity practice fit into my overall health practice? And how is my health practice, or all the efforts I make to be healthy, that's the health practice, how is that then basically solving a problem that I understand? And so if you have that sort of understanding from steps matter, they're a part of my physical activity practice, and I'm solving something that I understand, then all of a sudden this device that does this very simple thing becomes an excellent way to prevent cancer. And it's an excellent way for me to, right, now it's really important in my life, and the friction of having to charge the device every couple of days is de minimis, right? If you don't understand why you're using it, then again, well, this is what typically happens. Somebody uses it for a few weeks, they look at the graphs, they're not exactly sure of its value, and then they stop using the device because you're like, I just leave it. I left it in my drawer. I didn't charge it one day, and I was like, whatever. That you see a lot. And what's so frustrating for me is you see people so close to utilizing something that could help them, and they abandon it. And that's why you need something like a whole ecosystem like the loop model provides, which you're providing understanding, you're giving people a way to do it, a way to track it, and it's showing if they're working. Now, if you look at each one of those individual components, they're valuable, but they're incomplete. And so if you are somebody that's just giving information and lobbing information provisions at people, if the behavior change doesn't occur, then the response is, well, let's just give them more information. That's not right.
And that's what we want, and like we think, well, it's not working, maybe I'm not tracking this, or maybe we'll buy another. It's easier to buy a new device. It's easier, like I think like the golf analogy that I make is that golf is one of the few sports that the more money you spend, the better you're gonna get at, and that's there's diminishing returns. With health, that is not the case. With health, at some point, you just have to dig your heels and actually do stuff.
Yeah. So out of those 4 components of the loop model, why should I do it? How do I do it? Am I doing it? Is it working? What's the most important component of all of it? Am I doing it? Right? So you can be doing a behavior and not know why, but you're going to get all the benefits. And if you did know why, right? So you could be a college professor and know every single reason about that's known in the world about why it's good, but that knowledge will not vaccinate you from not having to do the behavior, right? In reverse, you could be let's say a high school teenager that just has this great life, is outside, is physically active, is low stress, that just you're doing all of this stuff and you don't know why it's important, but you're getting all the benefit of the action. Oftentimes people will come in there with a, let's say, a company, and they'll do a very expensive health risk assessment, lots of diagnostics, and the whole idea that people sort of buy into is, well, if I had more information, then that would sort of solve the problem. Maybe it could motivate you, but it comes back to, do you do something with that information? Do you change the way you eat? Do you get better sleep? Are you moving more? Whatever it is. So it all comes down to, all of these things are all about, does the knowledge, do the skills, does even the knowledge about yourself, does that all help you maintain that pattern that is effective?
And this is completely congruent with like the evolutionary movement and tribal societies. They don't know about circadian rhythms. Maybe in an intuitive way they do, but they don't know about how to partition their micronutrients according to their calorie expenditure. They are just doing, and we have all that information. But since we're not doing it, we continue to see cancer risk going up, heart disease going up, obesity going up. Now, at the foundation of this loop model, and something that you're really good at, is presenting information. Because you can have the best information in the world, but if you are not conveying this information in a easy to understand and aesthetically pleasing manner, you basically lose everything. How do you inspire yourself, or how do you set yourself up to have this aesthetic part of your presentations, of your graphics, of your apps? How do you do that, and why do you do it?
Going back to the idea of knowledge is important, and let's sort of challenge that idea a little bit, right? We talked a moment ago about how you don't need to know information in order to do it. So that's a truth. But the fact of the matter is, in our world, as we get older and we don't have as much free time and we're busy and we've got jobs, we're probably not going to do something if we don't know why. Particularly if that thing that we're talking about is less convenient, more expensive, than the default option, right? The default option is just how modern life shapes the way that we live. Driving to work, sitting at our desk under the exposure of artificial lights, spending 90% of our time indoors, going home, more artificial lights, eating something that's fast, right? Staying up late. That's just how we live. It's how most of us live. Now, if you're going to be doing things like wearing glasses at night, or eating food that's a little bit less tasty but healthier for you, or exercising in a certain way, all that stuff requires you guiding that behavior. And that's why knowledge does really matter. So we think about, how much do you want to teach somebody? And the way that I like to look at information is with this, something I came up with, which is fresh, familiar, or fluent, right? So fresh information is, okay, it's new to me. I've never heard it before, and it's interesting. And we love that. We love when we hear something that we've never heard. Familiar is, yeah, I've heard that before, but I really couldn't tell you about it. Fluent is, I know about that subject and I can tell you about that information. That is what we're aiming for with a diverse set of health subjects for an individual. You don't have to be a PhD in the subject, but you should be able to have a conversation with somebody about the subject, because the better you're able to do that, then the better you are able to capitalize or exploit that information for your own benefit. That's what we want. And a lot of people will circulate in I'm always looking for what's new. And yeah, I've heard it before, so yeah, not interested. I'm still searching for the fresh. And I call that silver bulleting. You're looking for this one thing that is, we have this tendency as humans that's going to explain or solve everything, right? It was gluten. It was the gut, right? It was something. Now, not to say that these things don't or can't matter. They usually can, but life is very, very complex. Our health is inextricably linked to the environment around us and the signals that we provide to it by how we live. When we go, we sort of tend to think of as like, oh, if I did something healthy for my body, like I went for a run, it was health boosting. The way that I look at it is that physical activity is a fundamental part of my health. That sleep is a fundamental part of my health. Sometimes people will ask, well, what's more important, sleep, physical activity, or or diet? All right, look at a three-legged stool. Tell me what leg is most important.
That's not even talking about like community or just self-love, which we don't think about much. So this three-legged stool has many legs, and every single one of those legs are important. And taking away from another to try to simplify your life, at the end, it's not going to work.
Totally. And so that's, in a way, I also feel that science is confusing. It's a very slow process. A lot of people getting even trained on the scientific method and understanding from a very high level is actually valuable too. So there's reasons why we do animal research. There's reasons why we do, clinical research. There's reasons why epidemiological or observational work is really valuable. Each of them are answering a question that they are best at addressing. Yeah, it's great to have RCTs, randomized clinical trials on things, but you can't do a randomized clinical trial that looks at a population over 30 years. You just can't conduct it for that long. And so each type of research is helping to answer one type of question. And the way that you actually try to understand an overall subject is by looking at all that research and then looking for the story that all of the research tells. And that's not to say that, all of the work is equally important, but it all matters. And you won't even look at a single study, you want to look at all of it. And so that is why I sort of wanted to create Human OS, because if you think about it, that's a lot of work. And so when we create health courses, we do all of that work for the person and then present basically an executive summary of the findings. And sadly, quality of information is somewhat harder to come by. The internet now is stuffed with volumes of information, and it's easy to find stuff. And actually, the people that are best at SEO and marketing techniques, they know how to make that information percolate to the top, and it's easiest to find. What I would say is, if you're looking for information, find a source that you really trust, that you understand what their process was and how they're making the right way to analyze and deliver information easier for you. I think that's a perfect opportunity for the internet to come in here, for technology to deliver, make it easier for you to not have to go do all that work. You might even not even have the background to do that right. It would take too much time, or you might make errors. Let's find somebody that actually has the background to do it, and then helps to educate you on, this is what we think are the key things for you to know. Now, the other thing that I'll say is that in a course that we put together, you don't need to actually learn everything. Everything that is taught isn't meant to be everything that you need to know. But rather, we don't want to just give you a list, but you have to understand the story, because in order for you to, again, empower it with value, you need to be persuaded. And so what I do is, when I work with somebody who's working to create a course here, we say, think about your A+ student and what conversation would they have with a friend at the end of the course. Now, let's retro-engineer that into our course by quizzes, so that basically the key points are always being highlighted as you're learning. And then also, if you think about, you read a book, you remember some of it, a month later you remember a little bit less, and eventually you remember some sound bites. I wanted a system where not only would you go through the information in a manner that would help you retain it, but then months later you could get reminded of those key learnings, so that your knowledge of what you've already learned stays really high. So that's sort of the thinking that goes in behind this. And all of this, again, is meant to sort of increase, your ability to master your own health practice. So yeah, that's the background.
So you've created this Human OS platform as as your dream or vision on how to implement habit forming education, data, and outcomes into one single repository. And, I've played around with Human OS, and it's just amazing the amount of work that you've put into these courses and the amount of dense information that is engaging. It's just fantastic. So how long have you been working on this?
I've been working on this really from the beginning of the generation of the loop model, which was in 2009. And that led to the whole idea of the overnight success, but it took 12 years to get, I'm really proud that we just launched Human OS. It took a very, very long time. What I really took pride in is making every component of what we do defensible. I also fully expect that as people use it, the community is going to offer ideas about what they want to see and how it can be better. And we're going to respond to that, consider it very carefully, and hopefully, and we will improve the tool based off of the user feedback. The very first thing that we ask people to do is watch a free course that I put together called Road of Health. The purpose of that is just to the very first thing to do is put you in the right frame of mind to address your health effectively and to think about these tools to prioritize correctly. I am responsible for a good deal of my health and how I'm living. I need to be really good at it. In being really good at it, I need to have some fluency around key topics that can influence how I live. I need to stay engaged on a day-by-day basis, and I need to continue to develop this relationship with both increasing my knowledge over time and also increasing my understanding and working with my patterns on a day-by-day basis and learning about myself over time. That, I think, was really.
And Human OS doesn't cover every single subject in health, but you can apply this loop model to any aspect of health. And some of the modules that you guys have is on diet and exercise. How can people get a hold of the free module for Human OS on accountability and self-determination?
So go to humanos.me and sign up and look for the course called Road of Health. It's free. All of our courses are broken into short lessons, so you can watch it all at once, or you can watch a little bit on the bus on the way to work and a little bit at lunch and, a little more a day later. So it's bite-sized educational snacks, if you will. A lot of actually the thinking around Human OS is saying, how can we make things sort of short and sweet? So our workouts tend to be, we have daily workouts, we have daily recipes. The recipes are, sort of normal recipes in that they aren't broken. They're not sort of like, oh, it's all, you can make it in 5 minutes.
It's not all tapas.
Exactly. But the workouts are. And actually, I think one of the more innovative aspects of the site is something called Intune Training, which is a daily workout program. It stands for integrative and opportunistic training. And now the way that we think of physical activity in our life is that we will, in the modern world, we go to a workout. We cluster all of our physical activity into a workout, and then we go live our life. Well, if you look at the hunter-gatherers, if you look at papers that are looking at step counting, the hunter-gatherer pattern is, first of all, they don't work that much. They do about 20 hours of work per week, but they do get a lot of physical activity into their day, about 135 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day, which is probably the equivalent of running about a mile and walking about another 5 or 6 miles, and then doing some heavy lifting periodically. But they also have a lot of rest, right? So it's not overly stressful or taxing, and they're not lifting really super heavy weights, and they're not doing everything at once, but actually their day has movement in it. And so with that idea and the combination of some writing that I did talking about how physical activity now at the right intensity can promote or stimulate better cognitive performance, I thought of a workout program which became Intune. And the idea is we give you a pretty short bodyweight oriented workout every day. And the very top, it says you have 16 hours in your day to complete. So the idea is like, here are my reps. I can do 5 here. An hour later, I finish an email. I can do another 5. You just want to finish your reps before the day is done. And that's different than saying, well, I got to find 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. If you have 1 minute here and there, you can sneak off to the restroom. You can do it before work. You can do it at lunch. Right? You have to figure out how it works in your life. And every day may look a little bit differently. But once you sort of get into that method of thinking about Intune, then you actually, it's the mindset change that happens with it, where there's always a chance to do some movement. And then you're also thinking about your body. What do I feel like right now? So I also like the idea that you're in tune with your body, right? Instead of always just pushing as hard as you can. So that's sort of part of the, like, some of the innovations description about other aspects of the site. But yeah, so like the whole idea of how you'd use Human OS is you come every day, you look at the workouts, you check out the recipes, and you think, how can this help make my day healthier? Now, you don't have to use any of them. You can all, because let's say you do something else physically active. Cool. Do that. We have tracking then that helps you sort of keep awareness of your level of physical activity against some standards, the Department of Health and Human Services weekly exercise recommendations. So we give you a score that lets you know where you are comparable to that. We also let you set your own goals so that if you want to do more or less, then you can set your goal and work towards that. And then, you might do a course. Let's say you're in the middle of doing a course and you've been hearing a lot about fasting. So you want to learn about it. Well, then you can buy, it's almost like an app store. You can buy the fasting course and then, learn. And then let's say a month later, you're interested in learning more about the Mediterranean diet. And then you can download that sort of component to unlock that component to your Human OS. That's how this is meant to work. And we're going to continue. We're working on another 10 courses right now, and we're going to just keep adding more content and tools to the site. But I want it to be something that accompanies people in their daily health practice. It's a part of your health practice. And again, your health practice is all the efforts you make to be healthy, whether it's belonging to a gym, wearing a tracker, reading a book. What are you doing intentionally to try to affect your health positively? And I want Human OS to be a part of people's health practice on a daily basis to help where it can.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's exactly, like the difference between knowing about something, implementing something, and actually making it part of your daily routine. Dan, this is such an amazing conversation. I wish I could extend it for another 2 hours, but I know you're super busy. How can people get a hold of you? What are your handles? And I heard that you have a podcast too.
Yes, I do. I don't think I have as much natural talent as you do at this, but So as of recent, you can go to humanos.me. That's the website. Twitter, humanos_me, Facebook, humanos.me, YouTube, humanos.me. The podcast you can find on our blog and also at SoundCloud or iTunes at Humanos Radio. So I mostly interview professors about their work. I thought that was a bit of a unique angle. So somebody publishes a study, I contact them, they come onto the show. Proud to say our podcast is the official podcast of the Sleep Research Society. So we do cover sleep, but we cover aging and physical activity and diet. So pretty much all things related to the stuff that matters to your efficacy. But yeah, so come check it out. And if anybody has sort of a thought about the site and something that they'd love to see or a way they'd love to use it, let us know.
Yeah, and then it just your impact into this gamification. I don't want to call it that because it's not. That didn't turn out that to work. It didn't work, the gamification aspect of things, but to actually make those trackers usable and understanding the data and being able to have outcomes from those trackers and the information, the way you portray it, and it's just Human OS is just fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. I can't wait to hang out again, having some cashew ice cream and going to bed late because that's what we do at conferences.
It's life, right? Yeah.
That is life.
Yeah, thank you for the work you do. It's been such a pleasure to meet you, Guillermo, and I think you're a special guy for sure. And I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you so much, dude, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man.